Hello everyone and welcome to Real Big Ten Football Talk +1 with Chris. I am Chris and this is the week 9 of the 2019 college football season, and we have one heck of a matchup here to talk about. A true battle of wills, a classical rivalry. That's right, that is the number 8 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish going to the Big House to face the 19th ranked Michigan Wolverines. And as we'll soon see, tail of the tape is not kind to the Wolverines. That is, their body of work has not been good. But in that second half of that loss to Penn State last week, the Wolverines showed me something. They showed that they know how to fight, finally. Now I know the Wolverines did give up that late first down. Bell dropped the ball in the end zone that would have tied the game late in the fourth quarter. That pretty much sealed the loss, or the victory you could say, for Penn State. But Michigan fought hard, only gave up a touchdown in the second half to the Nittany Lions, but unfortunately gave up 3 in the first half. Didn't really help them much as far as coming back. Michigan is also not built to come back from a deficit like we talked about with Wisconsin. And as we'll talk about later about Auburn when we see the Auburn and LSU game. But that's later. For right now, we're talking about Michigan and Notre Dame. So without further ado, let's get started with who of these two teams played so far. For Notre Dame, they did start out the year at Louisville, beating the Cardinals 35-17. An impressive victory on the road to start the year. Did follow that up with an impressive win at home to the Lobos of New Mexico, 66-14. A close, bitter, gut-wrenching defeat at the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, 23-17. I watched that game. It was painful to watch because I was rooting for the Irish in that game because I wanted to see them beat an actual ranked opponent for a change on the road, and they couldn't quite do it. But Notre Dame fought hard, came back, beat the then ranked 18th in the country Cavaliers of Virginia 35-20 in South Bend. Hammered Bowling Green 52-0 the week after that, but did struggle this last game against a reeling, demoralized, just shell of their former selves USC Trojans, 30-27 for the George Lily. Let's look at Michigan. As I've said, their body of work hasn't been kind. Did start out the year beating Middle Tennessee State 40-21 at home, but gave up 21 points. Also gave up 21 points to Army the week after that. Still won 24-21. At the time, I thought it was an okay victory. I even said that last week until I realized, I believe Army is only 3-3 right now. Not a very good victory. I can't talk today. Another interesting stat that I didn't mention here that I remembered was I think it was a couple years ago, I heard teams that play service academies or something like 1-11 the week after because those teams are so difficult to defend against because of the triple option type of style that they play. I can think of 3 teams off the top of my head that play that style of offense still. That's Army, Navy, and of course Georgia Tech. Air Force kind of does, but it's not as prevalent as Army, Navy, and Georgia Tech's. Air Force does throw the ball a little bit more, so I won't really include them in a true triple option type of team. And of course, we remember the crushing loss that Michigan faced in Madison the week after that to the then 13th ranked Wisconsin Badgers, 35-14. Michigan did come out strong the week after against Rutgers, but Rutgers is only 1-6. But still, a shutout victory, 52-0 at home. An impressive victory. I always give it a green font when someone shuts out someone. I don't care who the team is. And then beat a 14th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes 10-3 the week after that at home. Gave themselves some confidence, at least did beat a ranked opponent, but it was at home. Michigan is still yet to beat a ranked team on the road in the Jim Harbaugh era. I don't believe. I may be wrong about that. Please let me know if I am. Did also, I guess this victory is kind of more impressive than I thought at the time. Beat Illinois in Champaign 42-25, considering Wisconsin lost last week to that same Illini team in that same stadium that actually has a little bit more luster now than it did when I first reported on it last week. And of course, we all remember, and I've discussed it a little bit in the opening segment, lost to Penn State in Happy Valley 28-21. A true gut-wrenching defeat for the Wolverines. Let's look at that oddly close game that Notre Dame had with USC the last time they played, which was the week before last, since Notre Dame is coming off of a bye. Notre Dame gave up 25 first downs to the Trojans. Did do well, only allowing them to convert 5 of 12 on third downs for 41.6%, but gave up far too many yards on the ground and through the air. 171 on the ground, 255 through the air. That's definitely a scary stat if I'm a Notre Dame fan, at least for defense. Allowed 24-35 passing for the Trojans, 2 touchdowns thrown to 0 picks caused. Gave up 426 yards of total offense. The Trojans only committed 2 penalties for 20 yards. Definitely helped them stay in the game, in my opinion. Notre Dame didn't force a single turnover, but did win the time possession battle at 31 minutes and 24 seconds to 28 minutes and 36 seconds for the Trojans. Notre Dame was quite efficient on offense at getting 25 first downs themselves, 9 of 17 on third down, that's 52.9%, 308 yards on the ground. That's also a telling stat for me because it's such an imbalanced victory. At only 165 yards to the air for Ian Book, 17 of 32 passing. Did get 1 passing touchdown and no picks thrown, which is good. 473 yards of total offense. Did commit 5 penalties for 45 yards. Again, that can be a problem depending on when you commit those penalties. Was it on third and short and you had a pre-snap penalty, or worse, a holding penalty, which will have pushed you back and can cause you to it can be the difference between getting relatively easy first down on third and short versus a tough third and long situation where you may have to punt the ball or go for 3, depending on where you are on the field at the time. Notre Dame didn't give up a turnover at least, and as I said, did win the time possession battle. So not bad offensively for the Irish, but gave up far too many yards and far too many points to a very demoralized Trojan squad. For Michigan, we'll talk about that gut-wrenching loss in a little bit more detail, at least on paper. The Wolverines did get 26 first downs, 7 of 17 on third down, 41.1%. Not great, not bad considering the defense they faced. 141 yards on the ground, which is quite impressive considering the Wolverines have not done much on the ground this year. 276 yards through the air for Shea Patterson, 24-41 passing. Not great, but not awful either. What was bad was 0 touchdowns thrown and 1 pick. That pick also definitely hurt the Wolverines in that game. 417 yards of total offense. Normally I would make that yellow, but considering the defense the Wolverines played and the way their offense is done this year, I think that's an impressive feat at 417 yards. But 8 penalties for 48 yards. Lost the turnover margin at 1 turnover given up and 0 caused. Did win the time possession battle at 37 minutes and 45 seconds versus 22-15 for the Nittany Lions. Michigan's offense has done a better job of allowing their defense to at least stay rested, but their defense did give up far too many big chunk plays to Penn State. But if you look at just the bare stats on paper, Michigan only gave up 4 of 13 third down conversions for the Nittany Lions, 14 first downs. The 4 of 13 was 30.7% on third down, Only give up 101 yards on the ground. Considering what the Nittany Lions have done on the ground this year, very impressive for the Wolverines defense. Only allowing 182 yards through the air for Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford went 14 of 25 passing, but threw those 3 big, tough, bad for Michigan's defense passing touchdowns and didn't throw a single pick. So efficient, but bad at the same time. but did only give up 283 yards of total offense. Penn State did commit 5 penalties themselves for 58 yards. So, why did Michigan lose this game, you might ask? Michigan lost the game because they gave up far too many chunk plays in the first half. If this Wolverines team could have played 4 complete quarters, Michigan would have ran away with this game. If they could have played in the first half the way they played in the second half, the whole way through, I'd say this game could have been 35-14 Michigan. But they didn't. And that's been a problem for Michigan all year. Can't play 4 complete quarters against good quality competition. Like they did against Wisconsin. Couldn't play a complete game. Now look at the last 5 meetings between the Wolverines and the Irish. Last year, Michigan did lose in a close game to the Irish opening day, 24-17. And then they haven't played each other before last year since 2014. In that game, Notre Dame hammered Brady Hoke's Wolverines 31-0. In 2013, Michigan did beat Notre Dame in the Big House 41-30. In 2012, Notre Dame beat Michigan at home that time 13-6. And in 2011, the last time neither team was ranked in this matchup, Michigan won in the Big House 35-31. Looking at the tail of the tape now, and as we'll soon see, it does not fare kindly to the Wolverines. For Notre Dame, 451 yards of offense per game, that's 30th best in the country. 42.9% on third down, that's 42nd. But a key stat to remember going forward, Notre Dame is the best in the country at turnover margin at +10. Quite efficient if you're the Irish, at least for offense. For Michigan, an exact opposite almost, and only gaining 391.6 yards of offense per game. That's 80th worst or best in the country. 37.8% on third down. That ranks 82nd. At -2 turnover margin, that number increased from last week. That's 84th worst or best, I should say, in the country. Best being a relative term there. So it's bad for Michigan, as I have a new graphic there. That's Michigan falling to their death in that particular category. Moving forward, let's looking at the team's defensive efficiency. Both teams are pretty even, although Michigan has a slight edge, or has the edge, I should say. For Notre Dame, they are giving up 349.2 yards of offense per game. That's 41st in the country. Teams are converting on 34.4% of their third downs against the Irish. That's 36th best in the country. The Irish really excel, though, is forcing turnovers, at forcing 14 this year. That's 13th best in the country. That's more than 2 per game. That's quite an impressive feat for the Irish. For the Wolverines, Don Brown's defense has done quite well, at least on paper. It only giving up 283.3 yards of offense per game. That's 14th best in the country. Teams are only converting on 31.7% of their third downs against the Wolverines. That's 19th best in the country. But as we've talked about, Michigan has had a problem at giving up chunk plays to teams. Wolverines have only forced 12 turnovers. That's 36th best in the country. Not bad, considering your offense has turned the ball over 14 times this year. Defense needs to try to do a better job giving that struggling offense shorter field with well-timed turnovers. I should say clutch turnovers. But both teams are kind of pushed in that particular category. Passing offense, Notre Dame is okay at 63.5% of their passes complete. That's 42nd best in the country. Notre Dame's okay at passing the ball also statistically at 262 yards per game through the air. That's 42nd best in the country. Notre Dame's line does an excellent job at protecting Ian Book and only allowing 1.3 sacks per game. That's 26th best in the country. And Ian Book doesn't throw many picks. In fact, he's only thrown 2 picks this year out of 5 games played. For Michigan, quite atrocious as far as throwing the football, at only completing 56.3% of their passes. That's 101st in the country. 237.6 yards through the air. That's 67th worst in the country. But at least Michigan's line is trying. They're only allowing Shea Patterson to get sacked 1.7 times per game. That's 45th in the country. And Patterson hasn't done horrible, at least as far as throwing picks. He's only thrown 5 picks this year. Not bad, less than 1 per game. But Michigan is still in the basement in this particular category because of the low completion percentage. Shea Patterson is just not accurate enough to win those tough games. Like the Wisconsin game, like the Penn State game. He needs to be more accurate overall. Looking at the team's passing defense, as I didn't realize I left that stat or that graphic in there, but Notre Dame does dominate in the passing defense category, or at least has the edge, at only allowing 59.4% of their passes completed against them for the Irish. That's 50th in the country. Allowing 195.2 yards of passing yards, at 31st best in the country. Not bad. The Irish are also quite good at getting after the quarterback, at gaining 3 sacks per game. That's 16th best in the country. And this defense has acquired 6 picks this year. Not bad considering the Irish has only played 5 games. That's just over 1 per game. The Wolverines' defense allows far too many passes completed against them at 60.99 completion percentage allowed. You're allowing passes to be completed against you more often than your offense is completing them. Not a good ratio. That's 68th worst in the country. The completion percentage allowed, not the ratio. But when they are completed against Michigan, they are usually relatively short passes, except for the chunk plays. Michigan is only allowing 163.6 yards through the air against them. That's 8th best in the country. And Michigan also does a good job at getting after the quarterback at 2.9 sacks per game. That's 24th best in the country. But Don Brown's defense needs to do a better job of picking off the opposing quarterback. They've only gotten 5 interceptions this whole year. Michigan's played 7 games. That's bad. Both teams are this is just, yeah, the rushing splits, this is weird. Notre Dame is okay running the ball, getting 189 yards per game. That's 41st best in the country. But Notre Dame is not great at stopping the run and allowing 154 yards per game. That's 64th best in the country. And Michigan, on average, gains exactly 154 yards per game. Exactly what Notre Dame gives up on average. That's why I say it's kind of weird. That 154 yards per game ranks 80th in the country for the Wolverines. But the Wolverines are okay against the run, only allowing 119.7 yards against them on the ground. That's 30th best in the country. But both teams are quite bad in this category, so I'm going to give them both a trip to the basement. Red zone offensive efficiency for both teams. Notre Dame is pretty efficient at moving the ball and getting the ball inside the 20. At 3.7 red zone attempts per game, that's 51st in the country. But when they get inside the 20, the Irish have yet to be stopped from scoring once they get inside the red zone at 100%. Of course, that would be first. That would be best in the country. And the Irish score touchdowns 86.3% of the time when they get inside the 20. Quite impressive. Quite dominant for the Irish. Wolverines do a good job of getting inside the 20, getting 4.7 attempts per game. That's 8th best in the country. But when the Wolverines get inside the 20, they forget how to play football primarily, only scoring in general 72.7% of the time when they get inside the 20. That's 113th best in the country. When you are given that many opportunities inside the 20, you've got to score more often for Michigan. That also could have been a factor in the Penn State game. Converting some more of those into points, even 3 points, would help you. And the Wolverines are only getting 60.6%, or only scoring touchdowns 60.6% of the time when they get inside the 20. So, as a trip to the basement for Michigan in that particular stat line. Quite atrocious inside the 20 for their offense. Red zone defensive efficiency. Notre Dame is only allowing teams to get inside the red zone 2.3 times per game against them. That's 19th best in the country. In fact, both of these teams are only allowing 2.3 red zone attempts per game against them. What sets these two teams apart is when Notre Dame allows teams inside the 20, they allow those teams to score 92.9% of the time. That's bad. That's 123rd worst in the country bad. But at the very least, Notre Dame is only allowing touchdowns scored inside the 20 against them 57.1% of the time. So at least Notre Dame is only allowing field goals for a good amount of the time they allow teams inside the 20 against them. Michigan does a better job of only allowing 81.3% of scores against them inside the 20. That's 53rd in the country. But teams are scoring touchdowns 75% of the time against the Wolverines when they get inside the 20. Michigan needs to do a better job of forcing these teams into 3 points versus 6 when they get inside the 20 against them. Again, Penn State and Wisconsin. I don't need to say any more. Both teams struggle in this category, and that's why they both go to the basement. For Notre Dame allowing far too many scores against them inside the 20. For Michigan allowing too many touchdowns scored against them inside the 20. Both teams do an okay job at scoring, at least as far as in general. Notre Dame is scoring 39.2 points per game, outscoring opponents 22.3 points per game. That's 9th best in the country. Notre Dame does a good job at scoring out of the gate at 9.3 points per first quarter played. That's 15th best in the country. In the fourth quarter, Notre Dame is scoring on average 8.7 points. That's 34th best in the country. Not too shabby overall for the Irish. For the Wolverines, they are scoring 29 points per game, are outscoring their opponents by an average of 10 points. That's 28th best in the country. Anytime you can outscore your opponents on average, you're doing something right, in my opinion. And that scoring, I already said 20th best in the country. Michigan is scoring on average 7.9 points in the first quarter this year. That's 28th best in the country. But Michigan's offense stalls badly in the fourth quarter this year, only scoring on average 6.9 points in that money quarter. That's 70th. That's ranked 70th in the country. And so, now we'll look at the points allowed. We talked about how both teams have pretty good defenses. Not great, not nearly as dominant as Michigan's defense was last year, statistically anyway. But both teams are pretty solid on defense. Notre Dame is only allowing 16.8 points against them. That's 13th best in the country. But Notre Dame does struggle out of the gate defensively a little bit and in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame is allowing 4 points scored against them in the first. That's 33rd best in the country. In the fourth, Notre Dame is allowing teams to score on average 6.2 points. That is 56th best in the country. Michigan is allowing 19 points against them on average. That ranks 16th. Definitely good. In the top 20, definitely doing something right there. Allowing 5 points scored against them in the first. That's 45th best in the country. The Wolverines do a good job at slamming the door shut in the fourth quarter, only allowing just over a field goal scored. That's 6th best in the country. 3.1 points to be exact. So both teams are quite effective at preventing teams from scoring against them anyhow. Self-imposed errors. Both teams do struggle as far as committing too many penalties. Notre Dame is committing on average 6.33 penalties per game. That's 67th in the country. But when Notre Dame does commit penalties, they usually are relatively small at only committing 43 penalty yards per game. So I'm thinking probably a lot of pre-snap penalties, but those can still be bad depending on when you're committing them. And Notre Dame has only given up 4 turnovers this year. That's just, it's almost perfect, honestly, in this day and age of all of the way these defenses are. Only giving up 4 turnovers is quite impressive for the Irish. They do a good job of not beating themselves, at least as far as that goes. That's 3rd best in the country. For Michigan, far too many self-imposed errors on their part, committing on average 6.43 penalties per game. That's 68th in the country. And again, relatively low as far as penalty yards per penalty goes, at only 47.14 penalty yards per game. And I've seen from experience of watching the Wolverines here and there, they do commit far too many pre-snap penalties, especially in that Penn State game where they had to call a timeout prior to the first offensive play of the game. That's bad. And giving up 14 turnovers this year, that's 109th in the country. So yeah, Michigan gets a trip to the doghouse, so to speak, for that one. Items for digestion, rather. Both teams are similar as far as the schedule and level of competition played. Although Michigan has had a tougher schedule since they have played more ranked opponents than Notre Dame. Notre Dame does make far fewer mistakes on average. Michigan is facing their first top 13 opponent at home this year. I say top 13 because Iowa was ranked 14th. I wouldn't say top 10, but their first top 13, I should say. Notre Dame is coming off a bye following a close win to a substandard opponent. So Notre Dame isn't exactly riding on a high, so to speak. And of course, Michigan isn't after that tough loss against Penn State. As I already said. Both teams are definitely craving a win here for different reasons. For Notre Dame, it's to keep at pace in the college football playoff picture. For Michigan, to rekindle some shred of confidence. This team desperately needs something to give themselves some confidence going into the rest of their year. Because Michigan has still got to play 5 more games. So how are you going to finish? That's the question. That's the question in a lot of people's minds. How are you going to respond here? Neat little tidbits. These two teams played each other for the first time 100 years before I was born, in 1887. In that particular matchup, Michigan did win in South Bend 8-0. Notre Dame didn't beat Michigan until 1909 in Ann Arbor, 11-3. Notre Dame's, I thought this is a very amusing story. I had no idea about this one. Notre Dame's moniker, the Fighting Irish, came from a player trying to motivate his guys at halftime in their game against Michigan in 1909. That was their first victory. You know, interesting in and of itself. The quote goes, "What's the matter with you guys? You're all Irish, and you're not fighting worth a lick." That was just a random Michigan player. I didn't see what the name of the young man was that said that quote, but definitely an interesting quote, to say the least. And there you have it. That's how the Fighting Irish got their name, or got their moniker, the Fighting Irish. I'm not sure what they were called prior to that. Michigan does hold the advantage in this series at 24 wins, 17 losses, and 1 tie. Notre Dame's all-time win-loss tie record is 902 wins, 326 losses, and 42 ties. That is 5th best all-time. And Michigan's is 958 wins, 344 losses, I should say, and 36 ties. That ranks 2nd all-time. Sorry, I forgot to put that on there. So it's always a treat when the top 5 all-time teams get together and play. I want to say Oklahoma has the best all-time, but I can't swear to that. So, Notre Dame wins if you can win with home run plays in the air, which Michigan has struggled defending this year. But unfortunately, Ian Book has struggled in getting those big chunk plays as well, as we saw in the Georgia game. have to keep Michigan's innocuous running attack slow and force Patterson into making mistakes, which he has been good at doing this year. Making mistakes, I should say. Patterson is far too inaccurate to be able to win this game by himself. Also, you must continue your balanced offensive attack with a steady diet of book, short, and intermediate passes, and Tony Jones Jr. running consistently, getting yards on first and second down to set up third and short opportunities. That can be the difference between a win and a loss if you're able to consistently get into third and short versus third and longs. And of course, you have to play clean. Don't beat yourselves. You've done an excellent job at not beating yourselves this year in Notre Dame. For Michigan, you win if you can come out of the gate hot, playing with emotion, playing with that anger that you had to have felt at that loss last week against Penn State. But you can't allow those emotions to lead to mistakes. Get an early lead to give yourselves confidence and make the big house rock. Win the turnover battle in addition to the third down one. You have to win the turnover battle in this game. You have to force turnovers against the Irish. You can't commit them on offense. This team is far too good at taking advantage of teams' miscues. You have to establish some shred of a running game to take some pressure off of Shea Patterson. That's why you lost the Wisconsin game. That's why you lost to Penn State. Got to do a better job of getting a good, decent running attack to complement Shea Patterson. Just have fun. You're playing for pride. Play like you're playing for pride. Have some pride in yourselves, your program, your organization, your team's lineage going so far back. Michigan is it's a winning brand. So you have to realize what you're representing, Michigan players. So you have to play for that pride. Play for those ones that came before you. So who to pick? On paper, obviously, there's no question. Notre Dame has this in the bag. Everyone's been saying it, the media. I think if you ask a lot of Michigan fans, honestly, they'll tell you they don't believe Michigan can win this game. Obviously, these fans, of course, are rooting for Michigan. Why wouldn't you? That's your team. But rooting for a team is different than thinking they can actually win. Or believing they can actually win, I should say. I think some people think Michigan can win, but do they really believe it? Michigan is at a crossing roads now. But this Wolverine team showed me a lot in that second half against Penn State. Shoot, I turned the game off halfway through the second quarter because I thought it was a blowout. 21-0. I mean, who wouldn't have thought it was going to be a blowout? Michigan came back hard. And this team isn't even built to come back from a deficit. The team played hard. If not for two plays, could have been a different outcome. Bell's touchdown pass drop in the end zone on fourth down. And then giving up the first down run to, I'm sorry, I can't remember the young man's name for Penn State. On 4th and 1, if Michigan could have stopped Penn State there, they could have also given themselves an opportunity to tie the ball game late in the fourth. And so, my brain tells me Notre Dame all the way. But, in a shocker, my gut says Michigan. I'm going with my gut in this game. I'm going with my gut because of what Michigan showed in that second half. They showed they can fight. They showed they're willing to fight. But here's the key. Michigan has to play 4 complete quarters of football. Something they haven't done this whole year. Yeah, they did it against Rutgers. I don't care. Didn't really do it against Iowa. Your defense won. Michigan needs to play a complete 4-quarter game. That means both on offense and defense. Keep mistakes to a minimum. Convert on third down. And stop Notre Dame from converting on third down when you're on defense. I believe Michigan's going to do enough to win this game Notre Dame is not an explosive team. They're also not built to come back from a deficit. This is a winnable game. I don't care what Notre Dame's ranked. Notre Dame is good at figuring out ways to win, but they don't have a star-studded cast of players. Michigan's got the talent. And I believe you have some fight now. And I believe you're going to win this game because you have fight. Because you're going to beat a less talented Notre Dame team. You're at home. You're going to have that momentum coming out of the gate. You're going to play with fire. And I believe you're going to win. I believe you're going to win. So, with that in mind, thank you for watching. Irish fans, please hit the dislike button for me picking against your team. Everybody else, please like, share, subscribe if you do like what I do here. I try hard. I love what I do. I love college football. I love stats. And I love college football. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please say something in the comment section. Start a conversation. I'd love to actually engage in a conversation with you all instead of just talking at you. I'd love to actually talk to you. So, I hope you all have a splendid day. And until next time, this is Real Big Ten Football Talk +1 with Chris.